G'day Zetters, how you doing? Adam from Poseidon Racing here with another Z update. Well, it's been an exciting week. We've had the stats have been reset and we've got our new racing algorithm. And it's probably too early to do a full update, but my first thoughts on that update are, number one, the team has done an incredible job. I think overall the update is very, very good, but there are some things that might upset a few people, even myself, but I think they can be understood as better for the game in general. So what has happened, there's a new class system and there's been the stats reset and the horses have been rejigged, rebalanced, however you want to put it. Particularly the bred horses are now running, well, potentially most of them are running a lot different to what they were running pre the update. Now, we knew this was coming, but we didn't know how it was going to be working or what it was going to affect. And that was one of my, we'll start with the bad, I suppose. That's one of my pet peeves, I guess, is that essentially the horses have no representation to what they used to be. And I can give you a really great example of that because I've got two horses that are brother and sister, that are born from the same parents. Ace King, which used to be one of the best horses in the game, and I knew that was going to affect, I knew the update was going to affect Ace King, but I wasn't sure exactly how that was going to happen. Now, his sister, Ace King's sister, is called No Limit. They both got the same parents, they were both born at exactly the same time. Now, over the past 2 months, I got to know these two horses very, very well. Of course, Ace King was a champion with over 100 races run and a over 30% win rate. So he was probably arguably in the top 3 or 4 or 5 horses in the game. Okay, up there with Winchester and a few others. Now, what has happened since the update is those horses have been completely, to my understanding, or it is my assumption, that those bred horses have been completely rebred. Now, what do I mean by rebred? Well, essentially, if you can imagine the entire ecosystem of the Z horses, you've got the Genesis horses, and we'll touch on them in a minute. They've been rejigged as well. Actually, we'll start with that. The Genesis horses have also been rejigged, I think, and this is just my assumptions of what's happened over the last couple of days, just racing for a couple of days. Now, what I think happened to the Genesis horses is, and again, I agree with this, I think it's absolutely for the benefit of the game, is the Z1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, all the way down to 10s. They're the Genesis horses. So the horses that have been generated from the foundation of the game. Essentially, they have no parents. They are the Genesis breed horses. Now, they're very important to the game. And what was happening previous to the update is the Z10s, for example, if you got lucky and got a decent Z10, and there was lots of decent Z10s, were able to regularly compete and knock off the Z1s. Now, in a previous video, I actually mentioned that because the Z1s were roughly 4 Ethereum, which is roughly $2,000 US, and the Z10s were a fraction of an Ethereum, working out to around about $20 US. Okay, so you needed the Z1s to be 100 times better than the Z10s for that value ratio to work out. Now, that wasn't the case previously, and that has now been addressed. So what you now see with the Genesis horses after the update is the Z1s and 2s and 3s, or the higher NZ, or the NZ, or the lower Z numbers in the Genesis breed, are now somewhat closer to that value ratio of being 100 times better than a Z10. That's not to say that you don't get the odd Z10 that is still an absolute weapon and still can be the favourite and win a lot of races in a specific distance. Okay, but what you're now seeing is the Z1s and 2s have been somewhat boosted, I think, and the Z10s may be somewhat restricted in their genetic traits or skills. Okay, and if you put that on a graph, you would notice that the Z1s and 2s and 3s and the higher end or the lower number Z numbers, are now significantly better on average than what the 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s are. Or more better, if that's a word. They are now more better than what they were previous to the update. Now, that value ratio needs to be a thing, because if you can buy 10 Z10s and essentially get a horse that's going to compete with and beat Z1s relatively easily, as was the case previously, why would you ever buy a Z1? Okay, now there might be breeding advantages to the Z1s as well, which would give added value, but it wasn't giving the value that the cost was representing, the 2,000 US dollars versus the 20 US dollars. It wasn't, that value wasn't there. It now is, at least to a better degree. Okay, so interestingly, I thought the Z1s and 2s might start flying off the shelves at OpenSea. There's still some cheap ones there. I've gone and bought after the update. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they don't change it again, because I think the Z1s and 2s are absolute champions at this very point, and also some of the 3s, 4s, 5s as well to some degree, but not as consistently. There isn't too many Z1s or 2s that I've seen that are not performing. Now, this is not financial advice. Don't go and spend all your money on Z1s and 2s because I said they're champions and they're going to win lots of races, because you might get a whole bag full of duds. I don't know. But that's interesting, number one. So they've been seemingly rejigged. This is just my assumptions, my opinions. Maybe the Z team will confirm some of these opinions or assumptions after this video goes out. Okay, so it looks like the Genesis have been rebalanced to more closely match the value ratios of those very expensive Z1s versus the very accessible Z10s. I definitely think that has been the case. So if we think that has been the case, then all of the horses that have been bred previous to the update need to realign with their new parents. And that's been done as well. So the only way to do that, I think, or the easiest way to do that, was to regenerate and rebreed all the family trees down from those Genesis horses. And that's where we get back to those brothers and sisters, the brother and sister pair of No Limit, my horses, No Limit and Ace King. Previous to the update, Ace King was far, far, far superior to No Limit. No Limit was no good at all. But after the update, interestingly, No Limit is now far superior to Ace King, and that leads me to believe that they've all been completely rebred from the top down, right through the family trees, because otherwise you wouldn't get that brother-sister variation or that complete flip of genetics, because the way breeding works, obviously, sometimes you'll get a good horse that has really taken on the champion genetics of the parents, and sometimes you'll get a complete dud that hasn't taken on or has taken on the bad genetics of the parents. Okay, now previous, Ace King was an absolute freak and had all of the good genetics, but now he looks like he's taken on, you know, most of the dud genetics, and he's not that flash at all. Now he's for sale if you want to buy him, but look, to be honest, he's probably not that good. Certainly not a racer. He might be a breeder, but I doubt that too. The game is not old enough to know exactly how these things work, but at the early stage, No Limit looks like it has received better genetics than Ace King, and you know, just by going back through how that may have happened, it leads me to believe that they all were regenerated, rebred down through those family trees. So starting off with the Genesis and then bred down, and then if there was some legendaries bred, then they were bred back down and down and down and down, resulting in all of those bred horses being completely reshuffled and realigned with their new parents' genetics, because they changed as well. So that's really, really interesting. Now, not only that, there was a slight other change into the breeding as well, I believe, and that is now the fact that now it is much harder than it was before to produce an absolute freak like Ace King. And Winchester is another example of a freak that has also not been kindly treated after the update. And that's okay, because I think it's best for the game overall. You know, it's a bit of a shame. I would have liked to have sold Ace King pre the update and get a little bit of value out of him, but that would have, I guess, been very, very unfair to whoever had have bought him. So, I guess I can, take the loss with the good with the bad, if you like. And so now it's much, much harder to breed those genetic freaks as well. There needs to be a breeding strategy. I don't know what that breeding strategy is just yet. I'm assuming that maybe you need to isolate horses that have the same traits. So if you can find a mare that is very good at a 1,000-meter run and a stallion that is also very good at 1,000, maybe that will produce offspring with a chance of being very, very good at 1,000. I really don't know what the breeding strategy is as yet. Time will tell there. Now, let's switch over here, switch over to the full screen, and I'll just run through the class system. I guess that's the, whoop, that's a bit big. Look at my giant head over here. Let me just adjust that. That's a bit better. Okay. Now, so the overall update and the rejigging of the horses, I think we've gone through that. So the bred horses have been completely reshuffled. The slightly annoying thing for me, I suppose, is given the information that I had prior to the update, I did sell a lot of horses that I didn't think were any good, but had pretty good parents, or very good parents, in fact. You might see where this is going. So I had some horses that were bred from very, very good stock. But when I ran them and tested them, they weren't very good. But some of them were. Some of them were good, some of them weren't. So what I did, I thought, well, the update's coming. They're going to honour the traits of the current horses, I assumed. So I kept my good ones and I sold some of the ones that were not really performing or were not really good. But what has happened since is I've gotten a little bit unlucky, as many of you might have as well, but it's for the better of the game, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Because we know if we want this game to succeed and our horses to be worth much, much more Ethereum than what they currently are, we need to support the game as much as possible. And overall, I think this is very, very good for the game, but it has had some disadvantages for my own stable and many others out there as well, I'm sure. So what has happened here, getting back to my point, is I sold the horses that were not performing and kept the ones that were, but in the reshuffle, I've noticed that I've probably ended up with the blunt end of the stick, if you like, because the horses I've kept have now mostly gone backwards. And I've noticed that a lot of the horses, or at least a selection of the horses that I've sold, are doing very, very well and look to be potentially future champions. Okay, so those people that have bought horses off me, some of you have done very, very well out of that because I sold you them at a price that represented their pre-update skill set, and they weren't very good, to be honest, and that's why I sold them cheap. And now you've got horses that are very, very good. But that's only good for the game, I suppose. Some of those newer stable owners have now got horses that are going to be able to compete at the highest level. And for me, prior to the update, I was out buying as many Z1s and 2s as cheaply as I possibly could, and now it looks like that was a very good investment also. Now the class update, let's touch on that just quickly. The new class update here. Oh, I don't want the picture, go back where you were. Let's come on down. So this is exciting too, and this is an incredible update, which I absolutely love. And it's going to open the game up and open the competition up, because now horses that are not great have the ability to win races because there's classes based on that skill level. Here you can see the Griffin. You only get your horse debuts its first race. I think the same thing, isn't it? Debut and first race. In a Griffin. You can't go anywhere else but put your horse in its first race in the Griffin, and it only gets one race in Griffin. And what the Griffin does is basically give you a bit of an idea of which grade your horse is going to go into. So you can see here the class is set up as such. Griffin, all unraced horses. And then we go class 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you can see the points allocation over here. Now those points are based on a couple of things as we come on down. You have a base rating depending on the Z number of your horse. So if your Z number of your horse is between Z1 and 4, you will get a base rating of 57 points. If we come back up here, you will see that 57 points puts you, if nothing else changes in the Griffin, will put you in class 3. But if we scroll down, so there's the base point, Z5 to 9, you'll get a base of 37. And Z10 or lower, Z11, 12 and plus will give you a base rating of 17. So that means the Z10s now start fairly low. If you get a really good Z number, you can bring it through those paid races and do very, very well as it works its way up the gradings. How does that point system work? Let's have a look. So you start in the Griffin with these base ratings. So let's take a Z1 for example, base rating of 57. We start in the Griffin, it finishes first, plus 4, 61 points. That's as high as you can essentially start your second race, is 61 points, which actually puts you into Class 2. So any Z1 to Z4 winners in their first Griffin will jump straight to Class 2. If you had a Z10 and you won, you would still get 4 points and you will go to 21 points, which will put you in Class 4. Okay? And then you can work your way up through the points as you win races. So now if you have a really, really good Z10 that has maybe one distance, say it was really, really great at 2,000 metres, the odds are saying 5 to 1, 6 to 1 at 2,000, you could continually race that horse at 2,000 metres and bring it right up through the grades all the way to Class 1. But you'll be able to essentially run against weaker fields for a longer period of time because all the good Z1s to Z4s will be starting up in the higher grades. In fact, the lowest a Z1 to Z4 can start its second race with a loss. If you finish 12th, it's only minus 4 points. That'll only bring you back to minus 53, which is still going to put you into that Class 3. So your Z1 needs to lose a lot of races consistently to really go back to those lower classes, which is, to be honest, from what I've seen from those Z1s and 2s, is probably not going to happen, or at least not going to happen terribly often. Okay, what else have we got here? I think that's about it really for the classes, but it's really, I've only been watching this for a couple of days, but it's really, really awesome because you're seeing much closer races. You're seeing less of those blowout odds of those 50 to 1s and whatnot, of the horses that are just not going to compete. And we're seeing horses that probably don't have the skill set to compete in the Class 1s and 2s, winning races in that Class 5. I've got a couple in there myself that are actually not winning, but the points also do drop down, okay? And that's an interesting thing as well, is as the points drop down, you can get to 0 points, okay? And in actual fact, it would be rather, maybe they've capped it at 0 to save a little bit of face for some of those people that have horses that are just not doing well. But I'd like to see it go into the negatives because I just think it'd be kind of interesting to see who could get the most negative horse, the horse with the lowest class points out of everything. Because at the moment, the really bad horses seem like they might be finishing on 0 and that's it. But it would be kind of funny if you could get a horse down to minus 200 or something like that. I guess by capping it at 0, you still, if the horse comes good for a series of races, you still have a chance to, you know, maybe, well, you've got to win a lot of races to get out of Class 5 from 0, don't you? You've got to win 5 races outright without losing any points just to get to that 20 point there. So once you get to 0, it's a long way out of Class 5. But I think that's it. I think overall, from my perspective, the update looks to be a huge step forward, an absolutely huge step forward. Yes, I'm disappointed in selling some of my horses because I look to have given away some valuable horses rather cheaply, and I look to have gained some rather ordinary horses over that update. But I think, well, I absolutely know that it's been a very, very good update, and definitely the rebalance of those Z horses and the value of the Z1s and 2s now matches more closely to what it's supposed to match. So anyway, that's all there is for this update. That's enough talking from me. Thanks again. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I love Z as much as you do, and we're all trying to promote the game. So get out there, share it with your friends, tell them how great it is, And the Z team's doing an incredible job at continually updating and making the game better and work better for all of us racers and breeders out there. Thanks again. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now.